Leaves of absence. Mercer County Schools, Personal Leave Policy. Mercer County Schools is committed to protecting the job rights of employees absent on leaves of absence, including medical leave, family leave, parental leave, military caregiver leave, workers' compensation, and advanced study leave. As per West Virginia Code 18A-2, 2A, 18A-4, 10F, 21-5D-1. The Mercer County Board of Education does hereby institute this policy for leave of absences and personal leave, with or without cause, and establish a means by which employees may donate personal leave days to any specific employee who is experiencing a catastrophic medical emergency. This policy outlines procedures employees will follow in requesting and reporting absences, as well as application processes for extended leaves. At the beginning of the employment term, any full-time employee shall be entitled annually to at least 1.5 days personal leave for each employment month or major fraction thereof in the employee's employment term. Unused leave shall be accumulated without limitation and shall be transferable within the state. A change in job assignment during the school year does not affect the employee's rights or benefits. Copies of this policy shall be available to employees upon request and will be placed on the Mercer County Schools webpage under the Online Services tab. Definitions. Advanced study leave may be granted to an employee that has been accepted and registered as a full-time student unless in final term of program at an accredited institution of higher education. Catastrophic medical emergency. Medical or physical condition that 1. Incapacitates an employee or an immediate family member for whom the employee will provide care, 2. Is likely to require the prolonged absence of the employee from duty, and 3. Will result in a substantial loss of income to the employee. Donated days, personal leave with cause. Days voluntarily deducted from the accumulated number of days a donor employee has earned and credited to the receiving employee to be used only for absences due to the purpose for which transferred. Donor employee. Person employed by a county board who voluntarily contributes personal leave to another designated employee. Emergency. A sudden and unexpected turn of events calling for immediate action. Employee. Person who is employed by a county board and entitled to accrue personal leave as a benefit of employment. Family leave. Any leave granted under provisions of West Virginia Code 21.5D.1. Immediate family. The spouse, child, parent, grandparent, grandchild, brother, sister or current spouse's relative in same relationship. Leave of absence committee. A committee appointed by the superintendent, consisting of representatives from professional and service employees, charged with evaluating leave requests and making recommendations regarding eligibility. Medical leave may be granted for a period of 1 year for a serious health condition that makes the employee unable to perform their job, or leave may be granted for a period of up to 12 weeks to care for the employee's spouse, child, or parent who has a serious health condition which keeps the employee from his or her regular work. Military leave will be granted to employees who are members of the National Guard or Military Reserve Unit of the United States Armed Services upon presentation of orders requiring their participation or services to the superintendent or his or her designee. Personal leave with cause. Days claimed when an employee is absent from assigned duties due to accident, sickness, death in the immediate family, or life-threatening illness of the employee's spouse, parents, or child. Personal leave without cause. 4 days of leave annually that an employee is permitted to use without regard to the cause, but not to exceed the total amount of leave to which the employee is entitled. Receiving employee. Person employed by a county board who receives donated personal leave from another employee. Required maternity leave. Leave initiated when an employee does not request voluntary maternity leave, but, in the opinion of the employee's attending physician, is unable to continue her duties, or when an employee is no longer carrying out her regular duties in a satisfactory manner. Such leave shall require the recommendation of the superintendent and approval of the Board of Education. Employees may return to duty when the attending physician certifies in writing that the employee is able to resume regular duties. Voluntary maternity and/or paternity leave. Request by employee for maternity and/or paternity leave for pregnancy, for convalescence after childbirth, or for adoptive or infant bonding for a period of up to 1 year. This leave shall extend to either or both parents. Procedures. Personal leave without cause. Each employee is permitted to use 4 days of leave annually without regard to the cause. However, request for such leave may be denied if 15% of employees or 3 employees, whichever is greater, under the supervision of the principal or immediate supervisor have requested use of personal leave without cause or due to an emergency situation. Personal leave may not be used in connection with a concerted work stoppage or strike. The employee will submit a request for personal leave without cause 24 hours in advance, unless circumstances prevent such notice. Personal leave without cause may not be used on consecutive work days, unless authorized or approved by the employee's principal or immediate supervisor, as appropriate. If an employee chooses not to use the leave without cause days, they will be carried over, but an employee may not accrue more than 8 personal leave without cause days. If more than 8 are unused, the balance would accumulate as personal leave with cause. Personal leave with cause, the employee shall notify his or her principal or immediate supervisor, so that appropriate steps can be taken in the absence of the employee. Upon return to work, employees must fully complete the appropriate claim form, including nature of illness or reason for the absence, and submit it to their principal or immediate supervisor. For an extended absence, employees shall give prior notification to their principal or immediate supervisor, and if the employee chooses to utilize accrued personal leave days, then the only necessary paperwork to be completed would be an employee absence claim form. However, if an employee does not have any accrued personal leave days, or does not have enough accrued personal leave days to cover the extended absence, the employee shall notify their principal or immediate supervisor and promptly request a leave of absence packet from the Human Resource Department. A death in the employee's immediate family shall permit the employee to claim up to 3 days of personal leave with cause. However, the employee may not exceed his or her accumulated leave balance. An employee who has exhausted his or her paid leave but requires additional time off may submit a request for donated personal leave with cause days if a catastrophic medical emergency exists and request a leave of absence. Required forms are available in the Human Resource Department 18A. 4.10f. Donated personal leave with cause days. An employee may voluntarily transfer an unlimited number of personal leave with cause days to his or her spouse who is experiencing a catastrophic medical emergency, and up to 3 personal leave with cause days to an employee who is not his or her spouse. No employee shall be coerced or compelled to contribute personal leave with cause days. All requests to donate or to request donated days pursuant to this policy are to be submitted to the superintendent or his or her designee on the form provided by the Human Resource Department. Donated personal leave with cause days may not be used to qualify for or add service for any retirement system administered by the state or to extend insurance coverage provided by PEIA. Donated personal leave with cause days shall be credited to the receiving employee as 1 full personal leave with cause day without adjustment, being made based upon the hourly wage of each employee. Donated personal leave with cause days shall be used only for an absence due to the specified purpose for which donated. The payroll coordinator shall date and timestamp donated days as they are received. Donated personal leave with cause days shall be used in chronological order as received. Donated personal leave with cause days that are unused following the end of a catastrophic medical emergency shall be returned to donors in the reverse order received. General absences. The following items are included in an effort to make employees aware of expectations that may apply to use of accrued personal leave, employee responsibilities, and leaves of absence. An employee who exhibits one or more of the following behaviors may be asked to provide an explanation or documentation, may receive suggestions, recommendations, or placed on an improvement plan or subject to other disciplinary actions if attendance does not improve. Absences that reflect a pattern such as, but not limited to, days before and or after holidays, weekends, or payday. Absences during unresolved situations with parent and/or supervisory personnel. Unreported and or unexplained absences of 5 consecutive days or longer. Failure to submit request for leave in instances of prolonged absences to the principal or immediate supervisor. Failure to notify the immediate supervisor of the employee's intended absence from work. Absences in excess of 15 days in 1 school year regardless of accrued personal leave time. 3.4.2.7 Absences in excess of the number of personal leave accrued for that employee. General criteria for Mercer County Board leaves of absence. When an employee has exhausted all of his or her personal leave days, he or she must return to work or promptly apply for a leave of absence. Should an employee fail to request a leave of absence, or if the leave is not approved, and if such employee fails to return to work, the board may declare the contract terminated. Requests for 2 consecutive leaves of absence for different reasons may be approved only if the total leave does not exceed 1 calendar year, or when extraordinary circumstances exist. Requests for an additional leave shall be granted if it meets the requirements of the policy. At the conclusion of a leave of absence, the employee may request an additional leave of absence. The employee, however, must return to work if the leave has expired and the additional request has not been approved. If an employee returns to work within 1 calendar year from an approved leave of absence, he or she shall be entitled to return to his or her former position, unless they meet criteria in 3.5.9 of this policy. Absences in excess of the number of personal leave accrued for that employee. Any employee on an approved leave up to 1 year shall be responsible for the employee portion of the insurance premiums. Insurance premiums must be paid to the business office by the 5th of the month to avoid termination of coverage. If an employee's leave of absence extends beyond 1 year, the employee shall be entitled to a position appropriate to certification or classification which becomes available after his or her return. Any employee on an approved leave of absence for more than 1 calendar year shall be responsible for the total insurance premiums individual and Board of Education portion, if he or she desires to continue insurance coverage. Insurance premiums must be paid to the business office by the 5th of the month to avoid termination of coverage. If the employee is on a leave of absence, and during that leave of absence is placed on administrative transfer, or terminated due to a reduction in force, the employee would not return to his or her former position. An employee who obtains a leave of absence on the basis of a physician's recommendation must, before returning to work, submit a statement from the physician indicating that 1. The employee is capable of resuming their duties, and 2. With an effective date, to the Human Resource Office. Any employee on an extended unpaid leave shall retain seniority, rights and privileges which had accrued at the time of the approved leave of absence. Dues for professional memberships will not be deducted during the leave of absence. A leave shall not be granted to enable an employee to accept any other employment. During an approved leave, an employee may not be employed in any other position including, but not limited to, acting as a sales consultant for an online or home-based business or any position where income is derived, or any other employment, full-time or part-time. Said employment shall result in immediate termination of the leave of absence. An employee shall be considered to have voluntarily resigned from employment in the following instances: when an employee uses all of his or her personal leave days and does not request a leave of absence, and the employee fails to report to work. When an employee's request for a leave of absence is not approved and the employee fails to report to work. When an employee has used all of his or her paid and unpaid approved leave and the employee fails to report to work. Failure to request a leave of absence, when accumulated leave has been exhausted, and the employee fails to report for their assigned responsibilities shall constitute willful neglect of duty and insubordination, and the employee may be recommended for termination. It is the employee's responsibility to provide the superintendent or human resource department with required reports, orders, or paperwork. While on a leave of absence, it is the employee's responsibility to pay all insurance premiums or other benefits that may be interrupted by the leave of absence. Under certain circumstances, if an employee fails, without good reason, to return to work at the conclusion of an approved leave, the board may be entitled to recover its cost of the healthcare premium directly from the employee. An employee providing false or misleading information in his or her request for a leave of absence will be subject to disciplinary action, up to and including termination. If an employee uses personal leave which the employee has not yet accumulated on a monthly basis and subsequently leaves employment, the employee is required to reimburse the board for the salary or wages paid for the accumulated leave. Upon retirement, conversion of accumulated leave will be used in compliance with West Virginia statute. Medical leave, a serious health condition which keeps the employee from his or her work schedule. An employee shall not be required to use accumulated annual leave or personal leave prior to taking an extended unpaid leave of absence. Prior to approval of medical leave, an employee shall be notified of eligibility, rights and responsibilities for taking a family medical leave of absence under the federal guidelines of the Family Medical Leave Act. Family leave, leave granted to an employee for a period of up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave, following the exhaustion of all his or her annual and personal leave during any 12-month period. 21.5d.4. Because of the birth of a son or daughter of the employee. Because of the placement of a son or daughter with the employee for adoption. In order to care for the employee's spouse, child, parent, or dependent who has a serious health condition which keeps the employee from his or her regular work. By arrangement, this leave may be taken intermittently or part-time when medically necessary, but scheduled so as not to unduly disrupt the operations of the employer. If an employee requests family leave to care for a family member, he or she must provide certification by a healthcare provider indicating that 1. The family member has a serious health condition, 2. The date the serious health condition commenced and its probable duration, and 3. The medical facts regarding the serious health condition. Required forms will be requested from the Human Resource Department. Failure to provide required certification to the Human Resource Department shall halt an employee's request for leave. When the birth or adoption is foreseeable, or when planned treatments are known in advance, the employee shall provide the Human Resource Department with 2 weeks written notice. Employees shall not accrue personal leave, vacation, or other benefits during unpaid family leave. Maternity or paternity leave. The Parental Leave Act West Virginia Code 21.5d.1 requires that the board allow up to at least 12 weeks of unpaid leave in any 12-month period following the exhaustion of all annual personal leave. An employee may request maternity or paternity leave for pregnancy, for convalescence after childbirth, or for adoptive or infant bonding for a period of up to 1 year. This leave shall extend to either or both parents. Required medical maternity leave. Leave initiated when an employee does not request voluntary maternity leave, but, in the opinion of the employee's attending physician, is unable to continue her duties, or when an employee is no longer carrying out her regular duties in a satisfactory manner. Such leave shall require the recommendation of the superintendent and approval of the Board of Education. Employees may return to duty when the attending physician certifies in writing that the employee is able to resume regular duties. Military leave of absence. Employees who are members of the National Guard or Military Reserve Unit of the United States Armed Services shall be entitled to a leave of absence without loss of pay, status or efficiency rating, on the days during which they shall be engaged in drills, parades or other duty, during business hours ordered by proper authority, or for field training or active service of the state for a maximum period of 30 days in any one calendar year. The term without loss of pay means that the employee shall continue to receive his or her normal salary or compensation, notwithstanding the fact he or she may have received other compensation from federal or state sources during the same period. Employees on approved military leave that extends beyond 30 days will not receive compensation from Mercer County Schools after 30 days. An employee who is deemed eligible to take military caregiver leave may take up to 26 work weeks of such leave during a single 12-month period. However, the 26-week limit shall include any other family medical leave taken during the same 12-month period. An employee will be eligible when care is required for a covered service member in relationships listed in Section 2.10 who is a current member of the Armed Forces who is on the temporary disability retirement list or a veteran and has a serious injury or illness incurred in the line of active duty for which he or she is undergoing medical treatment, recuperation or therapy. Employees returning from military leave of less than 30 days should return to work on the first regularly scheduled workday after release from the military. Employees returning from military leave lasting from 31 to 180 days must notify the Human Resource Department of their intention to return to work within 14 days after completing active service. Employees on approved military leave greater than 30 days, but less than 180 school days, wishing to retain insurance coverage shall be required to pay the employee's share of the premium by the 5th day of the month. Employees on approved military leave longer than 1 year more than 180 school days wishing to retain insurance coverage shall be required to pay the total insurance premium by the 5th of the month. Employees on approved military leave up to and including 1 year will be entitled to return to the position they held when the leave started, unless they were impacted by a reduction in force under provisions of 18.2.2. Employees on approved military leave for more than 1 year will be entitled to a position appropriate to certifications or classifications they hold which becomes available after their release date. Workers' compensation. Mercer County Schools will comply with the restricted use of personal leave benefits when used in conjunction with workers' compensation benefits, as per West Virginia Code 18A.4.10. An employee absent from his or her assignment because of an active workers' compensation claim shall be required to provide a written status report completed by his or her physician to his or her immediate supervisor at least once every 45 days. The report will summarize the employee's health status and projected return to work. Before an employee can return to work under light duty, he or she must submit a request for accommodations form completed by his or her physician, with information regarding the employee's capabilities and limits, to the Human Resource Department. Once an employee on a temporary workers' compensation claim has been determined fit to resume his or her duties, he or she must authorize his or her physician to complete the certification of healthcare provider for employee's serious condition form and submit it to the Human Resource Department. Failure to submit or submission of incomplete forms may result in disciplinary action or possible termination of employment. The employee shall resume job responsibilities within 10 days of his or her release, or at the beginning of a new school term, whichever occurs first. Advanced study leave. An employee shall request a leave of absence through the Human Resource Department at least 30 working days prior to the beginning of this leave. An employee must complete the appropriate leave of absence form and provide all required information, including expected benefits for the school district and students, to the Human Resource Director prior to Board of Education approval. An employee must provide verification of acceptance and enrollment from the institution of higher education as a full-time student unless he or she is in the final term of a program and will complete the degree without being classified as full-time. An employee's failure to maintain full-time status unless in final semester prior to program completion shall result in termination of the leave of absence. An employee must notify the Human Resource Department a minimum of 10 days prior to his or her return. However, the return may be postponed if it would cause a disruption for students or if less than 15 days remain in the semester. General criteria for Federal Family Medical Leave Act. Unpaid leave following the exhaustion of all his or her annual and personal leave during any 12-month period. To qualify, employees must have worked for Mercer County Schools for more than 12 months and must have worked at least 1,250 hours during the previous year to qualify for medical leave and family leave. Severability. Any conflict between this policy and state statute shall be resolved by following the statute. If any portion of this policy, or the application thereof to any person or circumstances is held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions or applications of this policy.